Leave those wounded birds alone.
Don't touch them.
That's the message now. Yeah.
Don't touch them.
Don't touch those birds. Hello, everyone. This is Keith, and that's Katie, and welcome to the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith.
Hello.
Hello. We have a lot to talk about today, so we're going to have several breaks. Just pace yourself, folks. We're going to give you bathroom breaks and all kinds of shit.
Because we need them too.
We need them too. We have a lot of news, and things are not good. Things are getting worse, and we're going to talk about it here. First of all, anything you wanted to say off the top, Katie?
Well, I thought that we should talk about one of Trump's millions of executive orders, which he has released nonstop since inauguration. And so it makes it really hard to keep track of. I know, but
we're going to talk about two of them today. Two of them, but this is the first one.
Oh, yes. So this one is from February 18th. And in a press conference talking about it, I believe before he signed it, an official, I don't know who the guy was, said that this executive order, quote, reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the president or the attorney general can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is. Which makes it sound an awful lot like Trump signed an executive order that he's the king now. And some people have tried to downplay this and say that's not actually what the executive order says. So I thought that we should look at the executive order and see what it says, because we don't want to fearmonger. We want to make sure we're basing our assessments in fact. But
two things.
If it is potentially dangerous, we need to know that so we can make educated decisions.
Two things about this from my point of view. Number one, this did not get enough coverage. It was there and gone.
That's their whole deal. That's why they bombard us, so that things like this go under the radar.
And the media basically covers it for about one day and then it's gone, and people forget about it. The second thing is, of course, the Supreme Court gave Trump basically carte blanche to do whatever he wants as long as it's official acts. So basically, this sort of dovetails into that. When a president says,
I heard lawyers talk about that immunity ruling when it happened, and it only applies to official acts, but I never heard a good explanation of how do you exactly define official acts? And of course, they purposely leave that vague.
Right. It's all vague, so it all can be interpreted by the Supreme Court the way they interpreted that. But
by design, yeah.
If the president can say what is and is not, I mean, I'm going to interpret the law. He who interprets the law basically runs the government.
Right. And so we need to, we'll go through the executive order and talk about what it actually says, not just what his guy said in a press conference. But because, Trump is also famous for saying he can do stuff that he can't actually do. And then sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't. A lot of the stuff he does gets blocked. They're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks, which has always been their strategy. But a lot of the guardrails are gone this time. Right. So more stuff is sticking.
Now, in the executive order, it's not a very long one.
Right.
Okay. Basically, it says Article 2 of the Constitution vests all executive power in the president, meaning that all, and they basically put this in italics, all executive branch officials and employees are subject to his supervision. Therefore, because all executive power is vested in the president, all agencies must submit draft regulations for White House review, with no carve-out for independent agencies except for the monetary policy of the Fed, consult with the White House on their priorities and strategic plans, and the White House will set their performance standards. And that's all kind of borderline.
It sounds like, okay, well, they just want to make sure everything is
right.
They're saying this is to protect the American people from these rogue independent agencies. Right. So I found an opinion on the National Law Review, and that it's a very considered a very credible and unbiased legal source. And this opinion is by attorney Eric J. Troutman. And I will link to this in the Substack post and the executive order, of course. So Troutman says that Trump, with this executive order, has attempted, this is a quote, attempted to seize control of more or less the entire federal government, including the FCC, FTC, SEC, and perhaps most chillingly, the Federal Election Commission. Mm-hmm. That is one of these independent federal agencies that they are referring to so broadly in this executive order.
Did he not already fire somebody in the FEC?
I don't know.
So that the FEC can't function anymore the way it was intended to function.
So do we really want the Federal Election Commission to not operate independent of the White House?
Well,
that seems like a conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm. A little bit.
A little bit. So then the next part of the executive order says well, I think I'm skipping around just a little bit. Like you said, it's not very long, but I wanted to pull out the most important stuff. This is super important too. Again, it sounds benign until you start realizing the implications. The Office of Management and Budget will adjust so-called independent agencies' apportionments, meaning how much federal money they get, which Elon has already taken control of, to ensure tax dollars are spent wisely. Oh, doesn't that sound nice?
I like that. I like that so-called independent agency.
So-called. Here's the problem with that. The new director of the Office of Management and Budget is Russell Vought. He is one of the architects of Project 2025. Like, he and one other guy. I mean, yes, there were other contributors to it, but like that was his baby. He's the one who designed this entire plan to take over the federal government. And now he's the one who gets to decide who gets funding and for what, including the Federal Election Commission. Seems...
Which he can defund.
Right.
At this point.
Or just say, I'm not going to pay the people that work there now because we don't like them.
Right.
We're firing them, and we're going to replace them with people who will do what we want for elections. And then the last part that I wanted to pull out was the president and the attorney general, subject to the president's supervision and control, will interpret the law for the executive branch instead of having separate agencies adopt conflicting interpretations. Now, again, executive branch, under the Constitution is responsible to enforce the law, not to make it, not to interpret it. Mm-hmm. But this says interpret the law, including the Federal Election Commission. Like, I keep coming back to that because that's the crux of everything.
That people who assume we're going to have an election next year.
Right. So if they decide we don't like the way the Federal Election Commission interprets laws about voting and elections, we are going to interpret them differently. So back to this op-ed from the National Law Review, and this is a quote from that attorney, Eric Troutman. And just to make sure everyone understands the difference between legislative and executive functions. Legislative power, meaning Congress, involves making the law. Executive power, meaning the president, involves enforcing the law. So he asks, is it legal? Maybe. And it depends just how expansive the intended control Mr. Trump is trying to seize really is. Again, it's just left so nice and vague for plausible deniability.
Well,
so he says...
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is kind of a long quote, but I just thought that it was so well put. He says, if all Mr. Trump's order is intended to do is dictate that no federal agency shall take any enforcement action without his approval, then I think this is likely constitutional. To the extent, however, Mr. Trump is stating he intends to dictate what regulations and rules are implemented by these agencies, i.e., that he intends to seize control of their legislative function, which is supposed to be the role of Congress, and they would decide what is and is not okay for these independent agencies to do. That would be a very serious problem. At that point, the legislative and executive function would collapse into a single individual. I think that's a typo. A single individual, creating, as Madison wrote, the very definition of tyranny. Mr. Trump could then write the law to serve his agenda and then have it enforced as he saw fit. That would be unconstitutional in my view and pretty horrifying, frankly. Unfortunately, the order is vague as to its implications and intentions on regulatory matters, which is, again, not a bug.
Well, it's two things. The president, under the Constitution, is charged with faithfully executing the law, not interpreting it, not rewriting it for his own benefit, but
which is what he does with all these executive orders.
Exactly. The second thing is this plays into something that has gone back, an idea that has basically been adopted as part of Project 2025 called the unitary executive theory, which, and just not to get into the weeds here too much, but just basically the whole idea behind unitary executive theory is that it pretty much centers all real power into the executive branch, into the president of the United States, and that when the president does something, as Nixon once said, it's not illegal.
So tyranny.
Essentially, how do you say this? A nice, clean version of tyranny.
Mm-hmm. Benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah,
right? Not the term.
But I think most people
dictatorships are historically benevolent.
Benevolent dictatorships. Yeah, it's always a contradiction in terms.
Kind of an oxymoron. Yeah.
Yes, but I don't think the American people really understand or are really aware of just how significant this is, and the media didn't really cover it because they went on to the next shiny thing.
Right.
After this. And I know we have some idea of where this could land up. And I know that we had Kevin Roberts, another architect of Project 2025, said on Steve Bannon's podcast, "We are in the process of a second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be."
Mm-hmm. That was back in July, if you maybe heard and forgot, in the barrage of...
That actually was covered fairly well. That actually was covered fairly well. And but
I think it's also easy to forget that and not connect it to what's happening now, which is what they want. I'm just amazed
when the media actually does their job nowadays, you know. But
well, that's why we're pulling all of these. We're connecting the dots for people because the legacy media is not doing a good job of that.
Right, and they're not. And I think I think a lot of it is because they're afraid. But be that as it may, going on. And he also said Republicans should be encouraged by the Supreme Court's recent immunity ruling, which give presidents broad immunity from prosecution. I just think basically they're taking the ball and running with it and seeing how far they can run before anyone tries to stop them. Mm-hmm. And just going ahead and putting what I basically see here is you have Elon Musk running wild, basically tearing the federal government apart. The courts are moving slowly.
As they're designed to do.
And Trump is actually ignoring some of the rulings already. The media has rolled over and died. So the Congress is dead for all intents and purposes. They're basically the Reichstag. Republicans are basically doing whatever Trump wants them to do. And
although I have started to see a little more, some tiny glimmers of hope about that. I know a lot of Republicans, since Congress is on recess, have been having town halls in their home states and getting absolutely blasted by their constituents about what's going on, which I don't think they expected. I think they thought that people were not paying attention. And have you seen any of those clips?
Yeah, I saw the one clip. I think it was in Wisconsin. Was it Western Wisconsin?
One was in Wisconsin. Right. Yep. There was, I can't even remember. I've seen several.
Yeah,
And so I think as those reps are starting to realize that people are paying attention, they're starting to maybe reconsider going along with things so easily. But as you pointed out and have pointed out several times, these reps are also frightened
well, they're
for
being
themselves and
threatened.
their families.
Yeah, they are. And there was a Vanity Fair article that I posted. We don't really have time to get into today, but maybe next episode, about just how scared shitless the members of Congress are, not
Yeah.
just from being primaried, but from death threats they get and threats to their family and their kids. And this isn't being talked about enough, and maybe we'll take some time next episode to get into this.
Well, we
Um,
know that Putin is behind a lot of this too. So it makes sense that they would be getting
yeah,
threatened.
and I think
We don't know a
people really need to really need to understand. And I gotta do this. I gotta take just a minute or two. When you get a call at 2 in the morning from somebody who tells you, "Oh, hey, we saw where your wife was dining for lunch today. Um, she had the special. Oh, your kids. We saw what they were wearing on their way to school today. You'd be ashamed if anything happened to them." Click.
Mm-hmm.
You get enough of those calls at 2 in the morning. Yeah, it's going to change your behavior a lot. And so when Ratcliffe, I think wasn't him, no, Roberts, I'm sorry, when he says we're in the process of a second revolution which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be, he means that in a very specific way.
Mm-hmm.
That was a threat.
Yeah.
And
Well, and it's not just if the left allows it to be then.
Mhm.
It's if the right people with an actual conscience and soul on the right, if there are any left, um, making sure they're too afraid to stand up to any of this too.
We had talked about why a lot of people were wondering why does Elon Musk and his little Doge bros get to walk into federal agencies and just
Mm-hmm.
upend their computer system,
Without proper clearance and background checks. Yeah.
right? And without being stopped by the agency police.
Right. Because there are so many protocols in place that are supposed to stop that kind of thing from happening.
As a 24-year federal employee, so many laws are being broken here. So many regulations are being ignored. Simply because nobody with a gun and a badge is going against Trump. They basically these kids walked in there and said, "Get out of our way," to the cops and just brushed by them.
Well, and then they've also got private security, which apparently they have contracted using federal tax dollars.
Right, the triple canopy goons.
Right. Which what so they can be traced back to what was their original name?
Blackwater.
Blackwater, who committed war crimes in the Middle East.
You got it.
And they changed their name. They're still run by the same people, as far as I understand.
I think Eric Prince still has something to do with it, who is the original mercenary in charge of Blackwater, who is also intimately connected with the Trump family.
Well, and some of the actual soldiers who committed those crimes
Absolutely.
very likely still employed and are working as private security for Elon Musk via Donald Trump and being paid with your tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want something specific to complain to your reps about, that would be a good one. And the thing is, it's not illegal for them to contract private security.
No.
That happens all the time for the federal government. But if they are employing war criminals, that's a problem.
And if they're breaking federal regulations and federal law in the commission of their duty, they're also doing it too.
Right.
There was a Newsweek article on February 6th, which went into a little bit of this from Professor Timothy Snyder, who is a Yale professor and who wrote on tyranny, which you have quoted from rather liberally, as we can say. Who said that, quote, "There is no office that would give Elon Musk the authority to do what he was doing. and warned readers that Musk was in the process of taking over the federal government in his most recent blog post. That coup, I'm quoting, is in fact happening, and if we do not recognize it for what it is, it could succeed. And I think he's pretty much halfway home now. The damage has been done.
You said that was Timothy Snyder, the author of On Tyranny?
Yes.
So, professor of history and global affairs at Yale. Like, this guy specializes in the Holocaust and her European history. Mm-hmm. He knows what this process looks like. And he is saying, this is a coup, a quote unquote bloodless coup so far, happening in slow motion right under our noses. And a lot of Americans don't understand that's what's happening because this is not how it's looked historically. Because they're not coming in with guns and tanks.
Right.
And taking over, you know.
My worry is that already is irreparable damage done to federal computing systems. And that
a lot of this is going to have to be rebuilt from scratch because they've also been building in backdoor entrances for themselves.
Right, and they've been inserting AI into the systems, which only they can control. This AI could also basically decide who gets a check and who doesn't get a check. Like on the 28th of this month, I'm supposed to get my federal retirement check, and I'm crossing my fingers and I'll still get it.
Well, yeah, and my husband told me yesterday he filed for our tax returns weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He said federal always has come first.
Right.
Before state in terms of our returns. We got our state already. Federal, he said, I haven't even gotten confirmation that they received our filing and they owe us $8,000.
Wow.
Because I guess we moved tax brackets and didn't realize it. So we had our withholding set wrong. We should have been holding on to that.
That's budget changing money, though. Here's the thing, and this is why we do what we do, you and I, is to tell people this is how all this is going to affect you, where the rubber meets the road. This is your money. This is your government. And a lot of people, we're talking about the people who actually live on federal paychecks, Social Security people. I filed for Social Security at 62. I'm supposed to get my first paycheck in June. I'm thinking that's probably not going to happen, and that infuriates me. But I could do without it. It makes life a little more difficult. But there are a lot of people out there, millions of Americans, who can't do without it. That's going to put them in the street. And then what happens? You know, that's
revolution, I hope.
You would think.
We're getting there.
Well, here's the thing, though. Of course, last night, Trump fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Brown, fired the admiral in charge of the Navy. General Brown was black, Admiral Hatchett's a woman. So they're DEI hires. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff is going to be made of nothing but a bunch of mediocre white guys.
Yes, men. Sycophants.
But that is so they can use the Army as they see fit.
Well, the individual members of the Army still have to decide whether they're going to comply with those orders.
Well, as somebody who used to be in the Army Reserve, we're lectured on that. Do not comply with the legal order. But then on the second hand, they say, but if you don't do that, you're going to end up getting arrested, maybe executed. It's
to turn on American citizens, though, that's a little different than we're giving you an order in, Afghanistan.
The National Guard fired on the students at Kent State in 1970. I'm old enough to remember that.
I know it's possible, but I'm talking about an entire, military takeover of the U.S. population. Yeah. I don't think enough active duty military would go along with
I would like to believe that's true. I really do, and I like to think a lot of senior officers wouldn't go along with it either.
I mean, I know people who are fairly high up in certain parts of the military, and they can't say much,
right?
Obviously, because of what is their security clearances. But they're people that I would trust with my life. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. I mean, my sister-in-law is a contractor that works with the Navy, and she's not technically military. Her partner is. he works for the Navy too. But also one of my best friends from college was ROTC and is still active duty and flies Blackhawks and is a total badass. And I just touched base with her recently, and again, she couldn't say much, but I trust her. I know other people that are still in the military that I trust. So, yeah, I mean, of course, they're going to do that at the top levels, and then they're going to hope that that is enough to trickle down. I don't think it will be.
Well, there's still divisional commanders out there that aren't subject to congressional review. Basically, 3 stars and above have to be confirmed by Congress. 2 stars and below can be promoted through the ranks. So there's that kind of split there. We'll see what happens. But events are moving pretty rapidly right now, and it's hard to keep track of everything. But I would suspect by the end of the week we will see the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joint Chiefs replaced. So how that goes. But let's get back to Elon Musk, who also...
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just say that, Musk is also attacking judges, which is the other part of this entire equation about who's going to remain steadfast against this assault on our liberties. And on February 9th, Vance had posted that judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power, which we already talked about. The president saying, and then Musk saying that judges should be impeached. The ones who blocked his associates from accessing sensitive data about Americans in the Treasury Department database. I mean, what they're talking about.
They both know better, first of all.
Oh, they absolutely do.
JD Vance knows that what he's saying is bullshit.
JD Vance is saying a lot of bullshit lately.
I mean, and the worst part about him, it's like Musk and Trump and, Zuck and all these assholes, well, I don't know how Zuck grew up, but Musk and Trump grew up rich, right? The only thing they didn't get was love from their daddies. JD Vance grew up on welfare, raised by women. He, of all people, should not be dismantling the federal government. He is such a class traitor, and it boggles my mind. Not to mention he's married to an Indian woman. Like, what are you doing, bro?
I will always say what Kissinger said: power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. And in Washington, that energy is especially strong.
Enjoy it while it lasts,
right,
guys. I hope it ends up being worth it.
Yeah,
because it won't. One other thing, so we're giving this kind of timeline to put this executive order from February 18th in context of what threat really is this? How concerned should we be? It's so vague. Maybe it's not that big a deal. All evidence to the contrary is basically what we're saying. So in case anyone missed this, which I think this got pretty good coverage too, but on February 15th, Trump posted on, I think, both Truth Social and X. I know for sure it was on Truth Social. This is a Napoleon quote, by the way. He who saves his country does not violate any law.
Yeah, that was actually...
That is not a dictator.
I will say this, though, just for accuracy's sake. We don't know if Napoleon himself actually said that. Rod Steiger said that in the movie Waterloo from 1970. So Trump is actually...
to Napoleon.
Yeah, Trump is actually quoting Rod Steiger playing Napoleon, who
Well,
may
he
or
also
may
quotes
not have said it.
and Hitler all the time, so if
course.
you want to get,
Yeah, I do, because I'm a historian too. But it just... that does not take away from the implications of him saying that.
And then quickly followed by this post on the official White House Instagram account. I couldn't believe it. I saw it on Threads first. Someone posted this picture and said, this is on the official White House account. And I was like, no, it's not. That is fake. And I went and checked it, and I will link to this on Substack. Literally, it is a fake Time magazine cover. It is mocked up to look like Time magazine. And in the Time, everyone can picture the white Time font at the top. Instead of Time, it says Trump across the top. And then, of course, it's got the red border. And it's this like Norman Rockwell looking painting of him smiling his shit-eating grin that just makes you want to punch him. And he has a crown on his head. And it says, "Long live the king." And then it's got New York City in the background. And the caption says, quote, "Congestion pricing is dead, Manhattan. And Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king, President Donald J. Trump."
Yeah, they're saved from paying an extra $9 to drive in Midtown or Lower Manhattan.
I mean, I think what's more problematic is the "Long live the king" and the crown and the official White House website.
Oh, absolutely.
Instagram.
I'm just saying it's such a stupid thing to stake this on. If you can drive in Lower Manhattan, you can afford an extra $9 charge.
But you know why he's doing that.
I know why he's doing it.
Everyone in New York hates him.
Well, and now he's king of New York. He finally got what he always wanted. He
thinks he's owning the libs.
Yeah, he's owning the libs. He's also owning all those Manhattanites because he was a bridge and tunnel New Yorker and never felt accepted.
You don't like me, then you'll fear me.
Right, exactly. You can hate me, but you will fear me, which is an old Roman dictum. Let them hate so long as they fear.
Right.
And I think that's where we're heading in a lot of respects in this country. We just haven't seen the boot come down yet. So far, all this is being done through words and ignorance of the law. But
I don't know what will happen first: the boot coming down, or people just, gosh, the price of eggs sure hasn't gone down like he promised. In fact, I can't even find eggs because the fucking bird flu is out of control. Like, where are any of the promises he made? Like, at some point, the people who voted for him have to, I don't know what their red line is, but I'm sure it's very selfish. When it personally affects them enough.
Yeah, well, regret is coming a little too late for people right now.
What?
I mean, the regret that people have for voting for Trump is just too little too late.
I mean, it's not if they're willing to join the revolution. That's all we've got left.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't go back in time and unvote for him, although I have a feeling we're going to find out in the coming months that he didn't actually win the election. But that's actually, we'll talk about that next week, actually. We're hoping to have as a guest.
Oh, yeah, let's publicize that.
A cybersecurity expert, Jillian Ratliff, which if she's listening, Jillian, will you be on the show? She's my friend. I just haven't formally asked her yet. But
this is how we surprise people. Surprise guest.
So, we want to go more in depth about all of the implications of Elon and Doge and what they are doing digitally in all these agencies, and hopefully talk about the election part of it too. But so I know that, Keith, you are admittedly kind of like a doomer when it comes to everything's terrible.
Well, I would say that
everything is terrible. I'm naturally
pessimistic.
Okay, there you go. So I am an anxious person, but I'm also weirdly optimistic, which I think creates a strange balance in me. Mm-hmm. And so I know you posted yesterday on Threads that you were concerned about all the posts you saw of people whistling past the graveyard about, and I don't know what you were referring to specifically, but maybe just about you're worried people are feeling too hopeful about where things are headed.
Essentially.
Okay. And I'm one of those people that is more hopeful than you. And I saw a Threads post today that kind of summed up how I'm feeling. And I can't remember who posted it.
Anonymous thread poster said, it's okay.
He's a Gen X Canadian.
Oh.
Ben Wolf. and he said that Trump firing the Joint Chiefs of Staff is frankly, or in the process of doing that, is frankly excellent news. And why is that? Because it's another step towards a crumbling dictatorship. And you and I mentioned yesterday about the stock market starting to tank. I see those things as signs of hope, because I think those are going to speed up the process of people waking up to what's really going on and turning on him and actually doing something about it. I think that the slower that it happens, like what we don't want is the frog in the pot of water and the temperature is raising until the frog is boiled alive and doesn't even realize it. If it happens too slowly and too subtly, I think that's when we're fucked. And so in a very weird, twisted way, the fact that they are just going fucking gangbusters, like the psycho drug addict.
I just see
that they are.
I see them going, this is part of the Project 2025 implementation plan. I think everything is going according to plan.
Oh, I know.
I think the quickness of it is so that by the time the American people realize what's going on, it'll be too late.
What is too late, though?
What is too late? I mean, too late is that you can't change this.
But why? Why would we ever not be able to rise up? You know?
Well, it depends. Do you really?
That's their arrogance. I think their arrogance will be their downfall.
Let us go ahead and go there. Let's go there, because we brought it up. I don't see Mon Pa Kettle America getting up off their couches, grabbing their rifles, and going into the streets to be part of a revolution. Because, good golly, somebody could get hurt. I just don't see this country has the spirit of 1776 in them anymore.
Do you think it has to look like that in this day and age?
How else are you going to stop this?
I think that there's a lot of power in our own economic decisions.
Okay, we could do a national strike.
Well, I don't just mean that.
Or
I don't think a one-day strike is going to make a difference.
Or the thing they're planning for the 28th, Buy Nothing Day.
Yep, economic blackout. But I don't think any one-day measure. Those things are to get people to wake up and realize that they have power. But people have already been realizing that. Tesla stock is down 20%. Target stock is down a bunch. Like Target's probably going to end up filing for bankruptcy. Amazon stock is down. People are realizing that they have more power than just how they vote. And not just in terms of how we spend our money, but also in terms of our labor. And I think focusing on unions makes the most sense in terms of strikes, because the average person, not going to work for one day, A, they're worried about getting fired. B, one day, what difference does that make? But I think if teachers strike, if people in the trades strike, I mean, that can cripple our country in a day or two.
I mean, there are things that could happen that could do that. They could be declared illegal and people can be arrested.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Germany can put 50,000 people in the street at the drop of a hat to protest the right-wing alternative for Deutschland. Try doing that in this country.
We have been, Keith. We're just more spread out.
50,000 people in any major U.S. city. They have
been. Did you see the drone footage of New York City on President's Day?
I didn't.
That's by design.
I understand that.
You need to be careful that you are not giving in to the narrative that there's nothing we can do to stop this.
But here's the thing.
That is exactly what they want us to do.
I will say this, okay, and then we probably need to take a break. New York City is not America. I know
that, but I'm saying that is what you're talking about. Germany is like what, the size of New York as a state? It looks different in a country as spread out as we are. We can't all go to Washington, D.C.
I will grant you that America is very big and it is difficult to coordinate such a large protest.
And this is what I'm saying too, is we can't think in terms of one specific action, one day, one, type of protest. It has to be all of it. It has to be the boycotting. It has to be unions standing up as they've been doing more in recent years. It has to be protests in cities, which, I mean, the 5051 movement just posted and said every Sunday from now until March 4th, protests at state capitals at noon.
Did I tell you what happened in Pittsburgh with 5051?
What?
Okay. Pittsburgh's metro area population is approximately 1.1 million people, just to put that on the table. Okay. 2 competing marches formed last weekend. Okay? And
but both on the good side?
No, yes, but here's the problem. Both of them suffered from a terrible lack of organization and coordination. They didn't coordinate with each other because they're basically feuding arms of the left in Pittsburgh. Okay? And the one that is basically that was put together from the people I'll call the usual suspects formed the day before Sunday. They put it out Saturday afternoon for a Sunday noon demonstration. Now, both of those demonstrations together combined were 400 people. The rest of my case. I know it was cold. I know it was nasty outside.
Wait. You can't say New York City is not America, but then pretend that Pittsburgh is.
Pittsburgh is more America than New York City, I think.
By what measure?
You're a Midwesterner, okay? You understand what I'm getting at. The heartland of America. If they're not protesting in the heartland.
That sounds suspiciously like Texas is the real America. There's no such thing as the real America.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm talking about in the interior of the country. You have the New York Los Angeles axis, right? And you expect them because they're more liberal areas. And they're going to. But Allegheny County and Pittsburgh is a very liberal area too.
But my point is, when you are so spread out in a country and as polarized as we are, you cannot expect it to look the way it looks in a small country like Germany, where everyone is so centralized and can come to the same place and be all together. It just looks different. So you can say it's blue states, so that doesn't count. I mean, that's ridiculous to me. That they're Americans, just like.
Well, I never said. No, don't put words in my mouth. I'm not saying that. I'm saying.
You said it's not. That's not America.
New York City in of itself is what we call a very provincial town. New York is New York. Los Angeles is Los Angeles. Omaha is Omaha. Seattle is Seattle. Portland is Portland. Minneapolis is.
Yes, I know. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
There are cultures within certain areas of the country that are different.
And that is a function of us being so spread out and huge as a country.
All right.
It looks different here. My point is, I do not think it is productive to say we just don't protest like Europeans do, and we don't care like they do. And
I never said we didn't care. Again, I didn't say we didn't care.
But wasn't that your point about Pittsburgh?
It's a different type of dynamic. When you don't have an organizational left in this country.
I think that's what we're figuring out right now. Yeah, I think that our country is finally waking up to that.
I think we got to figure that out real quick.
Well, and we are. That's my point. I think we are. It's kind of like Kamala had 3 months to get her campaign together to run for president. Sometimes that's the way it works, but we can't just say, well, it's not enough time or it's too late. Because then what? We just give up? We can't.
I thought she did an excellent job in 100 days. I thought should have won.
I think she did win.
Well, I know you think she did. I would love to see that bet being proven because I suspect
You have to look for evidence.
I
to find.
suspect it's true, and if we can have Jillian on the show, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Okay, so we agree to disagree on this one.
Well, okay, let me just very quickly show you.
You're going to show me something.
You can't see my screen. Let me share. Here.
Okay.
Let me share my screen with you,
All
and
right.
then the people
So
should be able
those of you at home.
No, we'll post this. We'll post this.
Okay. I'm just having fun with you.
Yes, a video authentically shows protesters in New York City rallying against U.S. President Donald Trump's administration and Elon Musk. This is from Snopes.com. And originally, this video was posted on X, I believe, and people said, that's AI, that's not real. And so Snopes dug into it, and they did a backwards video search to find the original. So the original video was posted to like a pretty small Instagram account, actually, by like a photography company who took this footage. But okay, watch this. That's New York City on President's Day.
I'm watching, but I don't see anything.
You don't see it? Did you let me share?
I did.
Wait. Shoot. Okay. Here.
Okay. Here's something's going on.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
I don't know if there's volume, if there's audio.
I don't think there's volume with that. That's Columbus Circle. And that's where the arch is. And there are several thousand people there. It's very nice. They're carrying signs.
But like the immediate response and how much of this is planted, right, by bots for Musk and Zuck and stuff is that's not real. That's drone footage. It's real. All those people were out protesting in New York City.
I wish we could pan out, though.
Well, there is a longer clip.
Okay.
On Insta. Oh, here. This is the original one.
I'm going to give New York a big hand here.
Here.
Golf
protest rally against Trump. Oh, listen to that music, too. In New York City on President's Day.
Are they playing the Marseillaise?
Okay, so then there's some zoomed in footage. That's
God love New York. I was at a protest in New York one time for the environment.
Now they can all pour out into the streets and do this unprompted much more easily than people who live in the suburbs and are more spread out, and it looks different depending on where you are. And I think too, we shouldn't gloss over what you said about it being cold right now. I don't know if people in Europe understand how cold it gets here. I couldn't have gone to a President's Day protest anyway because I had my 4-year-old home from school that day. But it was -10 in
yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I would go out with that.
And that's not even with wind chill. And people still went. There were hundreds of people at our Capitol, at least. So, I think as things warm up in all that entails on all the levels of meaning, as things warm up, I think we're going to see more of
I hope so. I do. I'm trying to remain hopeful.
But the town halls, even if it's only 50 people showing up at a town hall to yell at their rep.
I would yell at my rep. But my rep's Summer Lee, and she's a good one.
Oh, yeah. I
think
it's
Fetterman, I tell you what, if John Fetterman had a town hall, my wife and I would both be there.
He's probably scared to have one.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
But I think it's much more impactful that people are showing up at the red town halls.
I do too. I thought that was an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. You and I are kind of like the yin and the yang here. I'm the pessimist. You're the optimist, and we're not angry at each other.
No,
this is just what we're doing here. And you, the listener, can decide which.
Do we have
person
time?
You agree with.
Oh, we were going to take a break anyway.
We need to take a break. Okay. It's been 50 minutes and we've been yakking. All right.
Okay.
So we'll take a break right now, and I will play the NFL and NBC music.
I can't hear it. I trust it's amazing.
Have like a dance break between, so Katie can use the restroom and people can get up and stretch or something. I don't know.
I needed to stretch too.
Let's see. You've taken over the screen. Oh, that's right.
Oh, sorry. I can stop my sharing.
That's fine. I'm losing everything
I
on
will
my
link
screen.
to that video though, and I'm not saying that because New York City protested, we are saved. I'm well aware that New York City is very liberal. My point about that was the media is not showing us a lot of what Americans are doing to protest. And so I don't want people to feel like, why should they bother to do anything to fight back because no one else is and it's hopeless. That is a narrative that the Trump administration wants you to believe, and it is being supported by legacy media because they are scared of Trump. So get on social media and find protest footage and find accounts that talk about ways that Americans are fighting back.
And if you really feel like going out and protesting, don't do it here in Pittsburgh because we just can't get our shit
But like
together.
you need more people to do it in Pittsburgh.
We cannot get our shit together because because it all depends on who gets to be in front of the cameras, and it all gets to be who gets to take credit, and it's sort of the typical liberal circular firing squad. Is what goes on in this town.
We definitely need to work on that as a group, and that is a topic I would love to cover another day. But I do want to say that someone made a good point the other day that being quote unquote disorganized isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that means that the revolution is decentralized, which means it is much harder to take down. You can laugh.
You are such a hopeless optimist. I love it.
Are you disagreeing with that? How can they take us down? You know, they could target specific individuals, they can target specific organizations, but if random mom and pop are pissed off and go to their town hall, and if everyday Americans are refusing to give money to companies that are in cahoots with what's happening, they can't take all of us down.
I want to be perfectly clear here. I support all of that. I really do. I just wonder how much of a total cumulative impact it will have.
That's what I'm telling you is it is only getting started.
All right. We're seeing the beginnings of Katie's revolution, folks.
It's not my revolution. It's Kendrick Lamar's revolution.
I know. Just giving you crap. Hey,
okay. But this is bordering on gaslighting a little bit, Keith. And I'm not, again, we're not really mad at each other, but
I'm a pessimist. Like we have, you know
what?
That. I'm a pessimist.
I know.
Cynic.
And be a pessimist, but don't gaslight someone for being an optimist.
I am, all right. I am
There's
sorry.
a difference, okay?
I apologize.
You be as pessimistic as you want, and that serves a role. I think warning people, and And everything that you're worried about is valid. I'm worried about all of that stuff too. But I'm not going to naysay your pessimism. You don't get to naysay my optimism.
I wasn't trying to naysay it.
Well,
all right, it may appear that way. I don't mean to be that way. Okay, let's just put it this way. I don't mean to, throw water on your parade.
We just, you were talking about the circular firing squad, and I know.
Oh no, that was about Pittsburgh. That's not about you.
Oh, yeah, but don't you live in Pittsburgh?
Of course I live in Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
I can criticize my own community because I know them.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, even if it's not our intention, we need to be very mindful about shooting down the ways that other people are fighting back, the ways that other people are finding hope. We need to not tone police other people. I've seen so much, and I'm not talking about you here, but I've seen so much tone policing on social media of like, you're swearing too much or you're too angry. Like, it's a fucking revolution. You don't get to tell people not to swear and be angry. You do you.
No, Katie,
handle it however you want.
Katie, settle down.
You're sounding a lot like the old.
You don't know me that well. You don't know when I'm trying to be funny and when I'm serious.
Well, the problem is, though, that there is some half-truth when you say that, and that's what I'm pointing out.
Katie is always serious, folks. Katie does not fuck around here on this show.
I am not always serious.
If she says it, you can take it to the bank. It comes straight from the heart. It really does. I'm not making bullshit up here either. That's one of the things that I thought we would do this thing because you are so dedicated and so knowledgeable and so communicative. Okay? You're just all around just a fantastic human being.
Well, but everything you're saying about me has also been used against me my whole life.
Oh God, I can't win here today.
All I'm trying to do, and women are going to understand what I'm saying. And you'll understand it probably more than a lot of guys because you're neurodivergent. Mm-hmm. Women, and especially neurodivergent women, are told we're being hysterical, we're overreacting, we're too much, we're too intense, we're too sensitive. This is what I was told my entire life growing up.
The same here.
And I warned my parents about all of this when Trump first decided to run. And they had that exact reaction. You're overreacting. You're making stuff up that's not really there. Let's just wait and see what happens. And here we are. So, yes, I am very sensitive to being told you're so serious. And I know you meant it as a compliment that I'm all in and I take this stuff seriously, but it's been used against me so much in my life. And I think women in general are so used to getting a condescending reaction when they try to warn about something that they know is a valid threat, especially from men who are like, oh, okay, go home and take a rest, have a glass of wine. You just need to you need to relax. And I've seen women talking about this on social media, that they feel like their husbands are not taking any of this seriously enough.
Oh, you should talk to my wife. We should have her on the show.
Yeah, I think your wife and I would be besties.
I am so
closer together.
You've just described me for the most part. I have to tone it down around her because then I bring her down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a gender reversal from, I think, the norm.
Yeah, it is. It is. But then again, I'm probably one of the more hysterical people you're ever going to meet. It just doesn't come through when we're doing this.
But you're not hysterical. You're
not on the air, no.
No, but that's the hysterical is such a condescending term. Your big feelings are valid. That's what we've talked about as far as why it's so hard to be neurodivergent right now, because we have seen this coming.
My
for
big
so
feelings
long.
are valid. You sound like my Shrek now.
What?
I know.
We all need to hear this.
I know.
Everyone who saw this coming and who has been trying to warn about it and trying to stop it and been told we're overreacting, and especially neurodivergent people who recognize patterns and who know history like you and I do.
Right.
We knew that this was coming. We didn't know what the exact details were going to look like, but we have been trying to warn people for years. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be a Black woman right now. They're like, how decades we've been telling you this. Like, it's so frustrating.
I just a little story. First of all, why don't we just go ahead and skip to the Make America Healthy Again news, and skip the other thing. But before I do this, just a little something about me. This was 1992. I have a very good friend from high school who was in military intelligence. He was a Russian interpreter translator, and he's a bigger cynic than I am. He's just saying something. We were sitting in my backyard, and he just, as he does every now and then, and he's a terrible Trumper now. I don't even, I didn't want to friend him on Facebook because I anyway. And he said, "Gosh, Jack, so let me ask you this. What do you see America in the future?" And I didn't even hesitate. I said, "Fascism." He almost fell out of his folding chairs. He basically, "What are you talking about? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life." And I said, "Yeah, no, fascism. I know my people. I know the way they think. I know their thoughts and prejudices."
Well, people too. I mean, it's
and
if you
I hate being right.
Psychology of human nature.
I know, and
history.
And he asked me, why do you say? And I remember telling him, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I explained it. And he still didn't believe it. And this is 1992. I hate being right, but I was right.
Well, why do you think David Foster Wallace took his life? He knew this is where we were headed.
That's an interesting thought. People, just so you know,
Anthony Bourdain.
You think Bourdain saw the future? I'm not saying you're wrong.
I think Bourdain knew enough about human nature,
right,
and the world, that I think he probably felt like he had peaked as far as his own potential for human experience.
Mm-hmm.
He was insanely smart. He also struggled with addiction and depression his entire adult life.
Right.
I mean, you can look at people like that.
So did Wallace.
Right. Hunter S. Thompson is someone that my husband admires. Now, I'm going to roll my eyes because these are all white men we're talking about. Read Octavia Butler. I'm blanking on what her book, Sower of Seeds. It's
Parable of the Sower.
Parable of the Sower, and then there's another one.
Aren't you glad you have me around?
Like, it's not just. I just want to make the point that it's definitely not just white men that saw this coming. Like Black people, Black women in particular.
Butler's book is probably the textbook for all of this, and everybody should read it.
It's terrifyingly accurate in terms of where we could be headed. So yeah. And I think sorry that I keep referring to posts on Threads, but that's my people, because in real life,
Truth.
I'm still sometimes, my husband doesn't tell me I'm overreacting about any of this. He's as scared as I am, but there are people in my real life that are still like thinking that I'm overreacting. And so Threads is where I can go to be, validated by other people who see what we see. And someone just posted, now I'm going to blank on what
this is real time, folks. You're getting this in real time.
I don't remember where I was going with that. I was doing the thing of giving too much context, and then I lost my train of thought.
I kicked you off of track. Sorry.
No, you didn't. I did it.
Oh. But I'm still fascinated by...
Oh, I remembered what it is. Sorry. It was just a white guy said...
A white guy?
He said, hear me out. What if all this time Black people and women and LGBTQ people have been right. That's it. What if we've been right? Brown people, indigenous people, all the people who have been trying to tell society at large. What if we were right?
It's like a movie where they only realize they were right when everything's about to end.
Right. And I think that's what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I'm hoping enough people wake up fast enough before, World War III and nukes get involved. That's when it's too late. As far as I'm concerned, it's not too late until that happens.
I have to, though, I still have to go back because you opened this topic, and when you're talking about people like Bourdain and the author David Foster Wallace, who wrote things like Infinite Jest, people who can see into the future and decide that's not a future they want to live in.
Yeah, and here's the problem, though. And here's why I think that the ones who fit that are mainly white. And certainly there have been white women who have, no, I'm saying like who have chosen to actually take their lives rather than live it and fight it. And there have been white women who have made that choice, poets, geniuses, Sylvia Plath, and
I was just about to mention her.
Anne Sexton, some of my favorites, Virginia Woolf.
All my favorite people, all my heroes are suicides.
But here's the thing. I think white privilege makes us fragile in the face of difficult times.
I think I agree with that. I do. I think you're right.
I think we're more likely to say, it's never been this hard and this scary before. I can't do this, and give up. And I don't think that Black and brown people especially have had the luxury of that. I mean, Black people, indigenous people in this country are like, you guys think tyranny is a new thing? You think fascism in this country is a new thing? Hello, that's been our ancestors' experience and our experience since this country was founded, since before it was even officially a country. So they've never had the luxury, they get taken down from the outside, right? Like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, those men didn't take their own lives. They were taken down by the country that they were trying to make better.
You know who also has another high incidence of suicides? Think about it. I'll see if you can guess what a particular line of work.
Oh, air traffic controllers.
Well, okay.
And dentists.
Dentists, really? Oh.
Yeah, dentists. Because everybody hates their dentist.
No, they don't. I love my dentist.
Well, no, I mean, like, because of what they do.
Oh. Well, I was thinking comedians.
Now, Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
Farley.
Richard Jeni. Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because they're the sad
people.
Clowns. They're trying to...
But they're the ones who have the insight.
Oh, for sure.
I'm backing up what you're saying. They're the ones who have the insight into what people are thinking, where society is going. I know George Carlin didn't kill himself, but he's one of these people. I think if he were alive today...
Oh, yeah. George Carlin's got some amazing stuff.
Right. And you have somebody like today, like Bill Burr, who is really speaking out on these issues right now. They're the ones, I think comedians have a gift of seeing where society is going and being able to decipher that from a broader audience and make them laugh. But I think a lot of the laughter that's generated from these comedians is almost like based on black humor. It's like we're all going down together, aren't we? That gets a laugh. And
so, well, and if anyone's familiar with the court jester trope, and especially in Shakespeare, the jester or the clown is the one who can actually speak the truth to the king without getting in trouble.
There you
go. Because they couch it in humor and they say, "Oh, I'm just playing." I want to mention one person as you're saying this, who I think is an amazing up and comer in comedy, who's doing exactly what we're talking about. Have you heard of Ronnie Cheng?
No, I haven't.
He is an Asian immigrant. I think he came over as a little kid because he does have an accent. So I don't think he was born here. In fact, I know he wasn't because his parents still live. I can't remember. I think he came from China. I'm sorry, I can't remember the details. I watched his comedy special a few months ago, and it was amazing and so spot on because he talks about politics and Trumpism and where we're headed. And, you know, again, though, but so he's Asian. He's kind of a brown person. I don't know if Asian people necessarily consider themselves that, but certainly in this country, they're considered, you know, a racial minority, and especially him being an immigrant, he has a very unique perspective. And
what was his last name again?
Cheng, it's Chieng, and he has at least one comedy special on Netflix.
I'll check him out.
So funny and also so accurate.
Okay.
So,
we're gonna break again. We're gonna but when we come back, we're going to talk about something that is probably right now, all the other threats that we face, this is the one that's going to come out in left field, and we want to get you hip to it, folks. And that is the bird flu, among other things that's going on right now. So let's come back. Let's talk about that, and we'll be back in just a minute. Back here and from the bomb shelter with Katie and Keith, and no one is going to get where that music I just played came from, unless they are a big fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, I used to love that show.
Yeah,
but I couldn't hear the music.
I know you can. I mean, we're gonna fix that. I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna do some work on that. But basically, now what we want to get into before we end the show here is the bird flu, and I know, Katie, you had one of the big breaking news from the state of Minnesota.
Yes, which talk about fails by the legacy media. So Minnesota, which is where I live, declared a state of emergency about the bird flu on either February 17th or 18th. Our two biggest, I would say, local news sources, the Star Tribune and NPR, which is Minnesota Public Radio, division of NPR, have said nothing. I've checked their apps. I've checked their social media. They have not even mentioned the fact that we have a state of emergency in Minnesota right now because of bird flu. And, you know, I think a lot of people are thinking like, well, it's bird flu. It's just about the birds. So why does everyone need to know that? And this is the problem. It's not just the birds, folks. I mean, as we have been discussing, Trump has been just firing everyone in federal agencies, and that includes the CDC. We are not getting good, accurate, thorough information about not just bird flu. We can touch on other communicable diseases if we have time, but I don't know if anyone saw the New York Times story. It was a couple weeks ago, I think. CDC posts then deletes data on bird flu spread between cats and people. Mm-hmm. I seriously doubt most Americans have any idea about that.
Right, and just to bring people up to speed on this, now bird flu can be tracked into your house. which is why now they're telling people probably a good idea to remove your shoes at the door. But
because it's not just chickens on chicken farms.
right,
Wild birds are dying of bird flu.
right. We stopped feeding our birds. That we have a bird feeder right outside our door, our front door, and that is airborne and can also come in if you have a drafty door under your door where the cats are picking it up, or the cats are picking it up from you tracking it in on your shoes.
Or your kids are tracking it.
Or your
I mean,
kids are
if anyone
tracking it.
steps in bird poop or, whatever, and brings it in on their shoes, and then your cats. So we don't think that, well, we know that birds can give it to humans, but we don't think there's a big risk of that unless you work, on a farm. Well, birds can give it to cows, who can give it to humans too. We know that.
Right.
So not even just poultry farms. But wild birds are infected and are dying. It looks like chickens can give it to people. I'm looking at a chart from the CDC website. It looks like chickens can give it to people. We don't think wild birds have transmitted to people, but this is the problem. So it shows that cows can give it to cats on this chart, but it doesn't show cat to human or human to cat transmission.
Yet.
Except there have been now 2 documented cases of transmission between cats and humans of bird flu.
Well, just this morning, breaking news in The Guardian, alarm is bird flu now endemic in cows, while Trump cuts staff and funding. Experts say current U.S. outbreak is unlikely to end without intervention, with further mutation of virus likely. And they talked to an influenza virologist and co-director of the Center for Transmission of Airborne Pathogens at Emory, who said it's endemic in cows now. There's no way this is going to get contained. And this whole article, and I guess you could go ahead and put it on the Substack too, on The Guardian. It's free.
And The Guardian, by the way, is a UK news source. The news organizations in other countries are doing a much better job covering this than ours are. The fact that Minnesota has a state of emergency was scooped by the Irish Star. That is how I found out about it, is that a great account I follow on Threads, SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19. It's kind of a stupid name in terms of finding it on your own, but I'll post it on the Substack. But they have done an amazing job. They're the ones that broke this NYC or New York Times story about the cat to human transmission, even though that information was taken down after like a day from the CDC website. And even now, the CDC website is not acknowledging cat to human transmission. It says that the current situation, the current public health risk is low on the CDC website. It says only 70 cases in the US of bird flu. I know that number is not accurate. And so The Guardian, the Irish Star, apparently, like, go to Canada's National Health Services.
Go to
website.
Health Canada.
They're doing a better job. And I can't hold it against the CDC. They're getting laid off left and right.
Yeah.
Like, how are they supposed to stay on top of it? And they're being told to suppress information. I guarantee you they didn't want to take down that information about cat to human transmission.
Well, one of the other virologists in the Guardian story said, and I quote, these are more opportunities for the virus to continue to adapt, and with adaptation, you worry that we'll ultimately get to a point where we may have a virus that becomes capable of transmitting efficiently between humans, and then that really would change the dynamic of the outbreak. Quite frankly, in my humble opinion, not being a scientist, that would make what happened with COVID-19 look like a walk in the park.
Well, I mean, I think it's only a matter of time until it's human to human.
I do too.
Because I know that it's already gone through enough mutations that it's only a couple steps away from it. That's what I've read from actual, virologists, epidemiologists. But the thing is, we do have an opportunity to handle it much better than COVID because we already have flu vaccines.
Right.
This is a strain of flu. It's not like we have to start from scratch the way we did with COVID. And my sister-in-law's a doctor. I'm not just talking out of my ass. She said we could pretty easily, probably, depending on what the strain looks like, adapt a current flu vaccine to protect us from bird flu when it gets to the human to human transmission point. And I don't know, maybe before that. The problem is who's in the White House right now. They don't want to acknowledge that it's a problem because it makes them look bad.
Folks, you are at risk. You are at risk because the CDC is being cut off at the knees. Information is not being shared between the CDC and the World Health Organization either. The Trump administration ordered all communications with the World Health Organization to cease. We are being left open and very vulnerable right now to the bird flu when it does finally go from human to human. And if that does, it'll go through this country like wildfire.
And it's a much higher death rate.
Much higher.
Again, depending on the strain, it could end up being a milder strain, and we saw milder strains of COVID too.
Let's hope.
Let me read this from an expert again, so that people know we're not just talking out of our asses here. So this is from The Conversation, which is a website that publishes doctors and scientists. So I think, and it is also kind of used mostly by doctors and scientists, but maybe it's something that lay people need to start paying attention to, The Conversation. So this was by Jordan Miller, who is a teaching professor of public health at Arizona State University. And she said CDC layoffs strike deeply at its ability to respond to the current flu, norovirus, and measles outbreaks and other public health emergencies. I know there's a tuberculosis outbreak in Kansas that is close to the biggest one we've seen in U.S. history, which is insane when you think about the science and vaccines that we have. Removal of websites and key public health data sets is a huge problem, she says. As of February 19th, about 10% of the CDC's staff have been removed, with plans for additional firings. Physicians are reporting that their ability to respond to the surges in respiratory viruses, because of course COVID has not gone away, and it surges usually in the winter, have been hobbled by the missing data and by prohibitions on CDC staff communicating outside the agency. She did have one, again, message of a glimmer of hope. The CDC's famed disease detectives, part of the Epidemic Intelligence Service, appear to have been spared in terms of the layoffs, at least for now, following public outcry after more than half of its members were initially told they would be let go as part of the February 14th mass layoffs. Happy Valentine's Day. So people were paying attention and said, that's not okay, and spoke up and called their reps. And let me tell you, Congress is getting a shit ton of calls from constituents. Keep it up, because it may feel like it's not making a difference in such a huge shitstorm, but it is.
But in the meantime, right now, like I said, there are some things that you all can do. Start leaving your shoes at the door, which is what the Canadians do.
Outside the door. We're leaving ours in the garage.
Oh, well, right, in the garage.
Huge pain in the ass.
If you see a dead bird, don't touch it. I don't know why you would touch a dead bird anyway.
Kids, tell your kids not to touch it.
Yeah, really. Don't touch goose and bird droppings. As it gets warmer, it's going to get a little bit easier for this thing to spread. Because people are outside and the birds will come and poop. And, I don't mean to sound
Geese
strange.
are coming back in the spring.
Right. And I just had a thought. What if the COVID virus merged with the bird flu virus?
Okay. We don't know if that's even a thing.
I know it would form a super virus.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm just randomly thinking here as we're discussing this.
Yeah, like when Trump was randomly thinking we should inject ourselves with bleach. Let's leave that to the
No, you rub it on your skin. That's what you. No,
right.
I'm just kidding.
Right.
People are going to start understanding when I'm just trying to be funny. But anyway, no, this is serious. And also, for heaven's sakes, if you're not prepping right now, start filling up your pantries. All right.
Yeah.
I would say definitely. There's so many things that could go south right now. to protect you and your family. Stock up on medical supplies. Stock up on over-the-counter medicines. Stock up on containers for food and for water. Okay, you're going to want to have water set aside too. Canned goods, non-perishables, things of
Masks
that
and gloves.
Masks and gloves. Thank you. Yes, very much. Buy extra masks because you don't want not to have them when you need them. He said in his double negative.
And if you have outdoor cats, it might be a good time to start keeping them inside.
Yeah.
Which I know is easier said than done. My cats are very sneaky. They are indoor cats, thankfully. But if they wanted to get outside, they probably could.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, but I don't, people with cats, I don't think are having this on their radar, and they need to.
Yeah. I'm just worried about the hammering the CDC is taking right now, and the lack of communication coming from them, which is not their fault.
Right. Well, and same with measles. So, USA Today just had an article about a huge measles outbreak, up to 58 cases just in this past week. And I looked at the CDC website to see if it said anything about this. It hasn't been updated since February 7th. And the message on the website said so this is for measles specifically, starting on January 2nd, the CDC will update this page monthly. And then it said, as of February 6th, 2025, a total of 14 measles cases were reported. Folks, the CDC website is not where you should be going for updated information on this stuff. Same with tuberculosis. Kansas has a huge outbreak right now. The most recent thing I could find on the CDC about tuberculosis was from 2023. And I looked.
And let's talk about just briefly about the fact that so many Americans have bought the bullshit from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and have not inoculated their children, have not vaccinated their children.
Poor kids vaccinated before this stuff gets worse.
Yeah, and measles is what probably the most easiest of diseases to spread.
And it is more serious than people realize.
Much more.
There can be deadly complications for little kids. And stop being so selfish. This isn't just about you. Maybe you can get measles or your older kids can get measles and be okay. But babies can't get vaccinated for measles until they're 1. Older people with immune deficiencies, people sick with cancer can't get vaccinated for this stuff, you guys.
Yeah.
It's our job to protect them. That's what herd immunity is about.
We're literally pleading with people.
Please protect the most vulnerable members of our population. It's more important than ever because this administration does not care how many people die.
It almost seems like we're being set up for a mass death.
Yeah. If we're sick and disabled, we can't fight against them.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for them.
Getting rid of all the useless eaters out there, as they say. That I don't know. I don't want to get too dark about this, but we're here to raise the alarm and get people mentally prepared for what could happen and start to physically prepare for what happens. So again, my pantry is almost to the point where I'm happy with it. If you haven't started stocking up, we've given you some good guidelines to do so.
I'll post a list. Hopefully it's still there. There's a government list for emergency preparedness that I can link to on Substack. For some basic ideas. And I do want to end on a positive note, if that's okay. Are we ready to wrap up?
We are ready to wrap up, and I know what you're going to do, so let them have it. We need to end with some positivity here.
Okay. Again, I don't want this to sound like toxic positivity. I hate toxic positivity. If you're not familiar, toxic positivity is what I was referencing earlier when people have valid concerns and big feelings and other people respond with, oh, you're just being so sensitive. It's not that big a deal. You just have to have a positive attitude, as if that's just going to fix things. Toxic positivity is bullshit. I am not denying that we are in a very precarious situation in this country. I have always believed democracy is extremely fragile and that the vast majority of Americans take that for granted. I mean, that's evidenced by how many people just don't bother to vote.
Right.
Even in presidential elections every 4 years, which granted, a lot of people have been targeted with voter suppression to make it especially harder for certain populations. I just mean kind of the American, if I get around to it, sort of attitude. But what I want to say is this, and I think, again, I think this is going to resonate especially with women, but I think it's something that men really need to hear right now. Yes, it is dire. The shit that's happening is super serious. We're in the middle of a fascist coup. My point in ending with a hopeful message is not to say it'll be fine, bury your head in the sand and wait until it's over. I do not believe in that shit. My mom does that. I don't talk to her anymore. I think that is privileged. It is arrogant. It's not what I'm saying. But women, especially in this country, are in war goddess mode right now. Kind of the equivalent of mama bear, but I don't like calling it that because I feel like the Moms for Liberty people ruin that.
Yeah.
So we're going to call it war goddess mode. We decide who has sovereignty over this nation, not them. These men can try to crown themselves kings all they want. They don't decide. We do. So they're putting on a really good show right now. They are doing everything they can to take sovereignty for themselves. They don't fucking decide. We do. And the way we decide is by waking up and rising up and fighting back however we can. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't mean you have to be in the streets protesting. Call your reps. Make sure that where you are spending money aligns with your values. Go to town halls if you can, or even just tune in, you know, if they're streaming a town hall or something. Start growing your own food as it gets warmer, in addition to stocking your pantry so that you have your own supply of fresh fruits and vegetables for when that shit starts going through the roof price-wise, because it's coming.
Yep.
Find ways to make your community resilient, to support the people in your community, and to do things at the local level, especially because they can make all these proclamations at the top, but they can't be in every single city making sure that all of the local governments and organizations are complying with their bullshit. So that is where we need to be involved on the ground level. This is going to be a grassroots up revolution. So we need to get in warrior goddess mode and realize, yeah, it's fucked, but we are not going to let them win. They don't decide, we do.
Wow.
That's a dark, hopeful message. That's why I'm wearing all black.
Are you wearing all black? You are wearing all black.
I'm about to dye my hair dark like my soul today, too. I'm serious. I mean, do what you need to do to get in this mindset.
You're going for the Morticia Addams look?
Not black.
Like
a medium brown. I'm naturally blonde. I can't pull off black.
Oh, okay.
But
all right. Well, I
mean, ladies, buy yourself some steel-toed boots too. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, buy yourself some shit kickers, because there's a lot of shit that needs to be kicked.
Nut kickers.
Okay. All right, folks, we're going to stop it there. Next week, we hope to have another great guest for you. A crypto... What would you call it? Cybersecurity
expert.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, this is From the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith. And no, we really, really do like each other. We just sometimes have these little disagreements. But we're cool.
That's how revolutions work.
Yes.
They're messy.
And remember, the man always has the last two words in these kind of spats. Yes, dear.
Yes, dear.
I know, that's an old sexist joke. I'm sorry about that. By the way, the theme that you're hearing right now that Katie can't hear is the old Today Show theme from the 1970s. Why do I remember it? Because I'm old. Anyway, have a good week. I might stop by during the week if something happens I need to talk about. But everybody, please take care of yourselves because we're in this for the long haul, okay?
Mask up.
All right. Everyone take care. We'll see you next week.